In this video, I'm going to help you better understand figures of speech and how to use them. Welcome on board. Okay, so let's set the ball rolling. Now, this video is going to be a two-part series because there are several figures of speech. Let's start by defining what a figure of speech is. But before we do that, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you can get notified every time I post a new video. So what is a figure of speech? A figure of speech is simply a word or phrase that possesses a different meaning from its literal definition. We're going to be looking at different figures of speech. Now, figures of speech are beautiful. They add colors, textures to our writing. So if you're someone who loves to write, you're an author, a poet, then you would understand the importance of figures of speech. But even if you're none of all these that I've mentioned, if you're someone who speaks English, you want to make your words lively, interesting, fun, and you can't do that without figures of speech. Okay, so let's go into the different types of figures of speech. I think there are over 20 types of figures of speech, but I'm just going to be talking about, I'll be focusing on the major ones which we use in our daily conversations, daily writings, and all that. So it's going to be a two-part series, as I've said earlier. Figure of speech one is simile. Now, simile, as a name implies, similar is when you use like or as to compare two unlike things. So for instance, you could say he is as fierce as a lion. Now, you know that the person is not exactly as fierce as a lion. Maybe he possesses some characters that look like that of a lion, but is entirely not as fierce as a lion. But simile, as I said, figures of speech, they just make our words more colorful and beautiful. So you could say he is as fierce as a lion. That is a kind of simile. These two elements are not exactly the same. They are not alike in any way. But because you're trying to pass a sense across, you use it, and that's what makes it simile. For instance, when you say someone eats like a pig, doesn't mean the person goes in the dirt and, picks his or her food from the dirt, and doesn't mean the person eats exactly like a pig, but because you're trying to create a mental picture. Okay, moving on now to metaphors. Metaphors in a way look like similes, but the difference is when talking about metaphors, you don't use like or as. You just simply say he is a lion. Now, when you say he is a lion, the person you're talking to gets the sense that this person behaves or has some characters that are like that of a lion, but it doesn't necessarily mean the person is an animal. Another example is time is money. So I'm sure you must have heard that statement before, time is money. That is a kind of metaphor. It doesn't exactly mean that time is money, even though time can actually be money, and that's why you have to use your time well. Okay, let's move on quickly to the next figure of speech. Next is personification. Now, in personification, you give a human attribute. For instance, you could say, the trees nodded their heads. The flowers bowed as he walked by. Or you could say, the mountains and the hills broke forth into singing. So it's not exactly as if these things I've mentioned possess the ability to do these things we've talked about, but to give it beauty and to make the words colorful. That's the essence of figures of speech. We'll take a short break now, visit the vocab spot, check out the word of the week, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. The next figure of speech we're going to be talking about is euphemism. Euphemism is when you use a mild, soft word or phrase to replace a harsh, difficult, terrible one. Okay, so for instance, you could say, he's being economical with the truth. You're definitely saying that he's a big fat liar. But because you don't want to be too blunt or harsh, you make it milder by saying he's being economical with the truth. Another one is to kick the bucket. He kicked the bucket means he died. Or you could also say he just passed away. That also means that he's dead. Another one that was commonly used, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic, is laying off. So we had to lay off some staff because of the economic situation. That simply means we had to sack some staff because of the economic situation. So you see, euphemism is a way to make a harsh, difficult term simpler or milder. Now, this next figure of speech is very interesting, and it's called oxymoron. An oxymoron is when you use two contradictory terms together. Now, oxymoron is actually a Greek word which means oxy, sharp, moron, dull. So there are two contradictory words used together. For instance, you could say crash landing. The plane crash landed. Now you know that those are two contradictory words because a plane either lands or crashes. When you bring the two terms together, you have an oxymoron. You must have also heard this term used before, working vacation, where you go on the vacation but you're still working, so it's more like remote working. Now it's either you're working or you're on vacation, that is, you're not working. But when you bring the two together, you have an oxymoron. So that is another example. You could also say, oh, this was a seriously funny movie, or that was a seriously funny show. Now, serious and funny are two contradictory terms, but when you bring them together, you have an oxymoron. Let's talk about hyperbole. Hyperbole is when you use exaggeration for emphasis in a sentence. For example, you could say, there's enough food in the kitchen to feed an entire nation. Now, the truth is, it doesn't mean that you have enough food, enough to feed an entire nation, especially a nation like Nigeria with over 200 million people. But you're just exaggerating, saying that there is enough food in the house. Another example, this is the worst book in the whole wide world. Now, it doesn't mean that you've read all the books in the world, but it simply means that you hate the book so much, or the book fell below your expectation and you're just being dramatic about the description. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, meaning that I am very famished. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can eat a horse. You actually cannot eat a horse, but you're just making emphasis, using exaggeration to make emphasis of how hungry you are. Another example, she was so sad she was drowning in her own tears. Now, it doesn't mean that her tears became a pool of water and then she began to swim till she started drowning. No, it just means that she was so sad, just to describe how sad she was and how, she was moved to tears. So the final figure of speech we're going to be checking out is irony. An irony is when you make a sentence and imply the direct opposite. For instance, you could say, he's as nice as a wolf. Now, we all know that wolves are not nice. So in that sense, you're saying that he's a mean person, but you are painting it in the direct opposite. And when you make a statement like, a marriage counselor is filing for divorce, you know that is also a contrasting situation. A marriage counselor is someone who is expected to understand what marriage is about and help other people to improve and last longer in their marriages. And so it's an irony when you hear a marriage counselor filing for divorce. So that's the sense of what an irony is. Alright, so let me know down in the comment section which of these figures of speech you like best. Okay, thank you so much. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, tell others about this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.